And tonight on PM Express, a situation that has got many worried because caterers of the school feeding program have resolved not to cook for the school because they're demanding payments of their arrears and also an increase in feeding fee from 97 pesos to 3 cedis. Now, Joy News checks in various schools in Accra, Central Region, Ashanti Region, and other parts of the country shows that pupils are getting frustrated. School authorities are worried because they've had to extend their break hours for the children to go around looking for food. Do they even have what it takes to provide meals for themselves? What then will be the impact of this on education? These are issues that bother parents, you and I, and any well-meaning Ghanaian. But let's do the reality check. The feeding fee per child currently, as we speak, is 97 pesos. That is less than 1 cedi. Let's pick a plate and try buying food outside to get a balanced meal. I'm talking about the main dish and its accompaniment. You need 5 cedis and above to do that. So will the caterers be justified in demanding an increase? Let me share a few statistics with you that will set the tone for the conversation. And of course, the question we're asking tonight is the school feeding crisis symptom of a bigger problem? That's the question we'll be trying to resolve today on PM Express. So the School Feeding Caterers Association, they say they've stopped providing meals for the students for obvious reasons. Now, here are the figures. Current charge per head, 0.97 pesos, and then they're proposing 3 cedi per child. Now, you want to juxtapose what they're asking for with the inflation rate. Between January and April, then you have 13.90% between in January. In February, it jumped up to 15 to 7%. And in March, you have 19.40%. April, 23.60. So you can just tell the climbing. It's not coming down. It's just going up as the months go by. Now, impacts of the food inflation rate of 26.6% on charge per head. You have current rate per head being 97 pesos. Value lost due to food inflation is 26 pesos. Proposed amount is 3 cedis, and you have value lost due to food inflation at 80 pesos. So these are the figures that we're talking about. Year-on-year food inflation as of April 2022. There you have it there. You have oils and fats up to 43. You have water, 42.1, cereal products, 31.5, fruits and vegetable juices. You have fruits and nuts, live animals and meat, fish and other foods. You have cocoa drinks, tea, you have coffee and coffee substitutes at 18.5. If you look at the rates here, then you will understand why they have no option, because definitely the caterers say they have no option than to stop cooking because they need money to go to the market to get the foodstuffs to prepare the food for the children. Now, 97 pesos, no meal, 3 cedi, then you can have a meal. Cost of an average meal, at least in the market, you pick a bowl or a plate, you go out there, at least you spend 7 cedis and above to get a meal that you can call balanced. So the impact as at 2016, if we're talking about the report before Mahama left office, amounts paid to the caterers were 50.70 million cedis. Number of students benefiting 1,693,698. Number of schools benefiting 4,881, and the jobs provided to farmers was up to 20,000. Now, impact as at 2021, amounts paid to caterers 50.70 million Ghana cedis. Number of students benefiting 1,693,698, and number of schools benefiting 4,881. Jobs provided to farmers 20,000. Looks like there hasn't really been any the figures have not gone up compared from 2016 up to 2021. It looks like the figures are still the same. There are 42,544 public basic schools and 31,093 private basic schools spread across the country. Ghana's basic education caters for the needs of 8,369,170 learners. So you look at all of this and then you look at the budgetary allocation. In billion Ghana cedis, you have what? In 2019, you have 2.3 cedis for 2.3 for SHS, and then you have 4.4 for basic education. Then you come to 2020, 1.97 for SHS, 4.2 for basic education. 2021, 2.43 for SHS and 4.72 for basic education. Now you come to 2022, you realize that it has dropped significantly. Now basic school is getting 3.87 as support in the budget as compared to the SHS. So there are arguments that government is focusing more on the senior high schools and actually neglecting the basic schools. I mean, is this part of the challenges we're facing with the basic school? Because government is neglecting basic schools, that's why we're facing some of these challenges with food that the people need to learn. So this is the question we're asking. The big question, is free SHS crowding out funds for other basic education programs? We'll be looking at these and looking for answers from my research. So when I return from this break, I'll be speaking with Dr. Emmanuel Ayifa. He's Deputy Country Director at St. Ghana. They have done a comprehensive research on the school feeding program and its impact on education. He'll be sharing excerpts of that research. I'll be speaking also with Alpha Siba. He's Head of Public Relations, Ghana School Feeding Program. Peggy Annan is National Executive Member of the Ghana School Feeding Caterers Association. And I'll also be joined by Kofi Asare. He's Executive Director of Africa Education Watch. Let's settle down for the conversation. Stay with me.
We are not going to cook. We are not going to cook until we hear something from them. We need our payments, number one, and we want increment too. So we are not going to cook on Monday.
How much do they owe you?
2 terms. Payment is you cook 1 term, and another term when you are going to end the 2 terms, then they will pay you. So they own us 2 terms. How can we get money to cook on Monday? How can we get money to cook on Monday?
The children are not going to eat on Monday. How will they feed?
We don't care. We don't care.
And this is Adjune, because I want to make palm nut soup. I have to put Adjune.
Nana Kumansa the first caters for more than 300 school children in the Accra suburb of Sakaman. She's one of the last caterers still at work. The food stock she has would last for the next 3 days, she says. When it runs out, she says she's going to stop.
This morning, my head teacher called me. Madam, I want to cook. The children are crying. Even one of the children, I spoke to them on the phone. They said, Madam, when I'm coming to school, my mom is not there. Mommy go to market. I didn't give any money for us because we know that we are coming to eat in the school. So where is our food?
Caterers under the program have not been paid for 2 terms. And with inflation skyrocketing beyond 23% now, the women involved are demanding 3 times more the money they are currently paid.
The way the government is treating us is not good. How can you cook as a caterer? You buy a wood, gas, people's children, and we are put ourselves that we are going to feed them. We accept it, they are going to feed them. But if things is going high, government have to consider us too and give us more money.
All of us today in the morning, class 1 and KG people didn't eat. I want our kitchen to come back so that they'll give us food to eat. And I am praying that if they come, they will give us food to eat.
This is Grace. She is 7 years and one of the many pupils who eat from the school feeding program.
Since we opened school from last week Wednesday, the caterers have not been coming till now. Our parents knew that they would be coming and giving us food, so they will give us snacks money to when we finish eating. They will buy water and those things to eat.
Ghana Education Service rules do not permit us entry into the schools, but on the outside of the school, we find many of the children loitering in search of food at break time.
Some children, their parents doesn't give them money, so when they come to the school, they'll sit in the class or be begging food. When you close, then they'll go home to find some food and eat.
For the school feeding, we don't use it at home.
Nana Kumansa wants to keep working, and like her, the thousands of caterers across the country are waiting for money so they could get back to cooking. Justice Beidou, Joy News, Accra.
So that was a report by Justice Beidou. Justice Beidou went to some schools around Mamprobi, and he came through with that report. Our reporters scattered across the country in the Ashanti region, for instance, also reported of same. We spoke with our correspondents in the northern region who say the caterers are still not back to cook. Let me start with you, Deputy Country Director at Send Ghana, Dr. Aifa. I'm grateful that you joined us this evening. Kofi Asari, I'm also grateful for your time. The rest will join in the course of the discussion. Now, Dr. Aifa, you have done a comprehensive survey on this report, and I would be glad for you to share with me some highlights. But first, how does this situation of school children having to now fend for themselves in terms of lunch come across to you?
Thank you, Aisha, for the opportunity, and good evening to your cherished viewers. And good evening, Kofi, my good friend. In fact, for me, the news about the caterers deciding not to cook for the kids no longer is not a surprise to me. I mean, somebody who have been active in the space, of course, not me just as an individual, but if you follow the civil society platform on the SDGs that is focused on social protection, this has been some of the key things that we've been advocating for quite some time now. Unfortunately, the school kids who have been, in a sense, hopeful that yes, indeed, school feeding is going to help them in terms of the key outcomes of retaining students in school, in terms of increasing their nutritional requirements and all that. Unfortunately, this is something that they are not going to benefit as we all envisage that they should. And so if I'm a child and I'm benefiting, I'm so excited about it. And I have to get my parents to at least give me money for lunch, which we know that in most of these schools, it's even difficult for parents to afford to give their kids the money that they need for such. So it is rather unfortunate. Let me speak specifically to our investigations. We did some work last year, just around November, December. We went to 10 districts in the 10 old regions of Ghana. We spoke to about 1,496. By this, we looked at caterers, we looked at pupils, we looked at teachers as well. And in fact, this wasn't just school feeding. It cut across all the social protection programs. But because we are dealing with school feeding now, let me highlight that. And the fact is that most of the key issues there are not different from what you see in the other social protection programs. It was clear, evident that people did praise the school feeding program, both parents, children, and teachers as well, in respect of it helping as far as increase in enrollment is concerned, as far as reducing dropout rate is concerned, and indeed as far as facilitating educational attainment by reducing the burden on parents, and as well as the nutritional outcomes. But some of them clearly spoke about the challenges. And indeed, one key challenge had to actually be in respect of caterers always complaining. In fact, this didn't only even come from caterers. Both caterers and teachers alike did complain. And in fact, one caterer highlighted that the payment often delays. And what I remember one also indicated, and it clearly permit me to quote exactly what the caterer from Amponsel Chrome indicated. They said, mostly we go for loans and government usually delay in payment of funds after we pre-finance. We wish the government could pay upfront before we commence the work. That is, commence cooking for the kids. Our monies usually get locked up, and we sometimes have to go for loans to continue cooking. Meanwhile, it takes a long time for claims to be paid. I mean, these are people who go for loans, and the fact is that if I go for loan and already we are saying that about just 97 pesos is what is given to them. And then considering the inflationary pressures and all that, and government delays in paying, it means that the caterers will continue be in debt. So, I mean, these are some of the key things that came up. Even the people also even highlighted that. One of the people, if you permit me to quote again, also indicated that the food is not good. Sometimes you get running stomach after eating the food. And this was from Dobonso, and the people said it is because the caterers sometimes tell us that the government don't give them money to cook. So they also need to just try and do something, prepare something for us, because the caterers don't want to see us always going hungry. This came from a people in Dombonso. Another chart indicated sometimes the food comes late, and this affects teaching and learning. Sorry, this came from a teacher in Salt Pond. And when the teacher said so, we sought to find out why it comes late. And he indicated that because of the fact that the caterers are not paid, sometimes it is quite difficult for them to get money on time to actually prepare the food. And so they do not blame the caterers. So largely, the issues about delays in payment is something that has been going on for quite some time now. We just heard that they said they've not been paid for 2 terms. As far as we're concerned, even the 2 terms is not for all the schools. You know, sometimes it even depends on where you are and all. I remember last 2 weeks when we had an engagement on this kind of validation on this report. The report is not yet out though, but we had a validation on it. Some indicated that for the whole of last academic year, they didn't receive anything. And you know, one thing is that the school feeding has an economy-wide effect, a local economy-wide effect, because the fact is that they are supposed to even procure all the ingredients from the very community that they are in. And so if there are delayed payment, the far-reaching implications, it doesn't only rest just with the school feeding caterers or the kids alone. It has a wider local economy effect. So these are some of the key things that so far, at least, are research came out with as far as the school feeding is concerned.
This definitely has an impact on the exercise. Let me bring in Kofi Asare. Last week, NAT complained bitterly about the fact that government is gradually shifting attention from basic education to SHS. And you yourself have had cause to complain that funding for basic education over the period has fallen and attention has been given more to free SHS, neglecting basic education. The situation we're facing now, is it a symptom of actually the alleged general neglect for basic education?
Good evening, Aisha, and good evening to your cherished audience. Thank you for the opportunity. I may not say that's a direct reflection of the neglect of basic education. Perhaps in the sense that the school feeding program is not managed by the Ministry of Education. It is actually a social intervention program managed by the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection. And so the correlation between the budget allocated for school feeding and that of free senior high school feeding might not be, direct in the sense that these are different ministries. Having said that, I wanted to situate the challenges around the school feeding program within the quality of one, leadership, and then two, the level of priority it commands within the social sectors of government. I'll start from the second one. Of course, you cannot compare the school feeding program to the free senior high school feeding because one is a flagship of the government of the day. The other isn't. A flagship is called a flagship for a purpose. So it enjoys the priority attention that you won't expect the school feeding program to get, whether it's justified or not. The leadership of the school feeding program has left much to be desired. We've gone about a year without a substantive minister managing the program. And let me just remind you that the school feeding program accounts for close to 80% of the budget of the Ministry of Gender, if not more than that. The budget of the Ministry of Gender is a little above 1 billion. And school feeding program, and this year, the allocation was about 880 million Ghana cedis. So it tells you that the school feeding program is virtually the main deal at the Ministry of Gender. Now, if there is no minister or substantive minister there, and the absence of a substantive minister affects program delivery, then it will affect most the school feeding program because that is the biggest program of that ministry. More so where the minister, the substantive minister is a cabinet minister. And I'll give you this example. After the Minister of Finance announced an increase in the school feeding allocation from 488 million last year to about 860 or so million this year, which represented about 90% increment. And went ahead to announce that government was increasing the amount of the number of students benefiting from 3.4 to 4 million. And let me just correct it because the figure initially turned out, I think was still the 2016 data. The current number of beneficiaries is about 3.4 million. That's actually almost doubled between 2016 and now, from 1.6 to 3.4 million. And government intended to increase it from 3.4 to 4 million, hence that budgetary allocation. What happened 3 months after the budget was read was that the caretaker minister goes to parliament, just on the eve of the Minister of Finance indicating that because of the austerity measures, budget will have to be cut by 20%. Then the caretaker minister goes to parliament and says that the expansion of the school feeding program, the purpose for which the allocation was increased for this year, has been put on hold. So it gave us the impression that perhaps that budget has been cut because the 20% cuts were then announced. Since then, we haven't seen any decisive leadership in terms of assuring caterers that the allocations that were made by the Minister of Finance in his budget have been disbursed. For that matter, their arrears are being paid, or their agitations for increment, which started about 3 years or 2 years ago, has been approved. So you see that if there was a substantive minister, who in this case was a cabinet minister, I'm not sure if that minister wouldn't have advocated at that level for her budget not to be cut. And I'm talking about a social inclusion budget, a budget meant for the poor in our society. That is why I see that the school feeding issue is first a leadership issue from the Ministry of Gender. It could have been managed properly, but it is first a leadership issue. The second issue is that it is a financial issue. The Ministry of Finance has not released the funds that the caterers are asking for. If the Ministry of Finance has released the funds the caterers are asking for to the Ministry of Gender, the Ministry of Gender wouldn't have waited all this while for caterers to visit their premises and be demonstrating. It is because there's a liquidity problem. And we are facing similar issues also under the free senior high school feeding, where until headmasters declare that we are about to close school down, we don't have food, people are hungry, until media reports, until there is some noise about shortage of food or hunger, you won't see money being hurriedly dispersed. So there is a general liquidity problem, and the lack of decisive leadership, the lack of a substantive minister at the Ministry of Gender has also deprived, the school feeding program of the leadership it requires, and that is why we are having the discussion today.
I'm happy that you spoke about the fact that the expansion of the school feeding program will be halted, as announced by the caretaker minister. Now, Dr. Aifa, I want us to assess the impact of stalling the food to the people on education. What is the impact on education? What did your research find?
Thanks. So clearly, as I indicated, most of them alluded to the fact that the school feeding actually has helped, in terms of the head teachers, has helped they've seen increased enrollment and also reduced dropout rates. And parents actually also spoke about the fact that the school feeding program has helped to facilitate educational attainment by reducing the barriers that their children otherwise could haven't had because of the fact that they couldn't even have food to give to their kids. And also, there have been a lot of research out there. This is not, of course, from our work, but there are a lot of publications that point to very good nutritional outcomes as far as school feeding is concerned. And so halting preparation of meals for the kids will mean that we are going to go back to the days where we have a lot of dropout rates. And we are also going to go back to the days where the very good educational outcomes that we seek to attain are all going to be eroded. I also spoke about the local economy effects of the school feeding program, knowing that it creates a lot of jobs. Talk about the number of caterers that the school feeding employs, and talk about the other people that support the caterers. These are all sort of employment avenues that people get through the school feeding program. And the fact that they procure their ingredients from the local economy, the farmers and all the people that sell their produce to the school feeding caterers. And so this is how the impact, unfortunately, we've not really had a quantitative study on how big the impact will be in terms of the local economy and dimensions of it. I know there have been some little studies for different locations for smaller districts, but as a country as a whole, we've not done that. But it's very clear that the impact is very huge. And so if we continue to just deal with the school feeding anyhow, like we are seeing, it's unfortunate that it's happening this way. Let me extend the conversation. We are talking about school feeding, but it is even more than the school feeding, because you point to LEAP is the same thing. You point to capitation grant is the same thing. Even the free SHS that we are talking about, Kofi just spoke about it. The fact that things are really not moving the way all of us expect that it has to be. In fact, somebody even monitored, one of our partners monitored what is happening in the schools. And one headmaster, permit me to just read exactly what one of the headmasters indicated. The children are suffering. And no, I wonder why head teachers and teachers cannot talk. Sorry, this didn't come from the headmaster. This came from one of our partners. Students in boarding school sleep in darkness for a whole month. They eat cocoa in the morning and in the evening to go to bed. The government will not allow parents even to visit their kids just so that they will even see the dark conditions that they are in. Aisha, you asked about the impact, but I thought that I should also put these things out there just for us to know about the current situation that we are in. We cannot be playing with our education system like that. It cannot just help us. If we really want to develop, I mean, education is one of the key things that as a country we shouldn't play with, because it has very long-term benefits for this country. So the local economy-wide effect that we are losing is one thing. The reduced retention that we are going to lose, the increased dropout rates that we are going to lose. So these are some of the negative sides of toying with the school feeding program. Thank you.
So yesterday there was a meeting scheduled between government and the caterers, and it does look like the outcome wasn't satisfactory to the Caterers Association. If Peggy Annan joins us, who is an executive member of the Caterers Association, she'll be telling us more about what they really agreed on at the meeting, but also speaking with the PRO of the School Feeding Secretariat, Alpha Thiba. He indicated that government is willing to deal with the challenges, especially the increments they are looking for. But he cannot assure when that will happen. Let me ask you this, Kofi Asari. Over the period, you have been worried about performance. I mean, especially at the basic level, pupils and students at the SHS level. Now, one of the objectives of introducing the school feeding program was to, one, increase enrollment. It means that when that is taken away, it certainly will have implications on enrollment. What are you foreseeing in terms of impact?
Well, I don't think it will ever be taken away. The school feeding program has come to stay. It is actually a program being implemented by the African Union. Worldwide, school feeding programs have, gone beyond debate in terms of their impact on enrollment and especially survival. In South Africa, for instance, where school feeding is almost in all schools, they have one of the highest survival rates, about 93 to 94% in basic and secondary schools. And so we all know that it is an integral part of education systems, especially in Southern Africa. And as I said, globally, we have lots of children, close to 400 million children benefiting from school feeding programs in Africa, in Asia, and also in South America. So I don't foresee anything happening to the program. What I foresee is that government will have to meet the caterers halfway. I see 2 cities as a very, very, very reasonable win-win situation. Reasonable in the sense that at present, senior high school students are feeding on 2 cedis for lunch. Okay.
Wow.
And so if senior high school students are feeding on 2 cedis on lunch, and so I know that the size of an average senior high school, about 3,000 to 4,000 students, is way bigger than the size of a basic school for about 500 students. So economy of scale is on the side of senior high schools. But if senior high schools are able to manage 2 cedis to feed their students for lunch, I think that a starter of 2 cedis for the Ghana school feeding caterers shouldn't be bad, given the financial challenges that we appreciate that the economy is in. I want us to, within all the discussion, also have appreciate the fact that the school feeding program's challenges will not end with increasing the allocation. We need to have a system that ensures that we don't unduly owe caterers. Whenever you unduly owe caterers, whenever liquidity issues set in, and you owe caterers for up to 2 months, you, apart from the fact that you cannot vouch for the quality of food they will provide or they will cook because they are cash strapped, apart from that fact, it also blurs accountability. The extent to which persons responsible for ensuring quality assurance, delivery, and all that can monitor their performance and sanction appropriately in line with their contract is limited because you're not giving them money. So, delays in the disbursement of funds to caterers, it's not just an issue of delaying someone or the person not being able to go and pay their loan on time and accumulating debt, or, but it goes beyond that to affect the quality of monitoring and supervision of the program and also the quality of food that they are able to cook. And so let's not take the issue of delay kindly at all. Let's try as much as possible to let the school feeding program, which was instituted by His Excellency President Kufuor in 2005-6 thereabouts, reflect the urgency and then the importance that government attaches to free, compulsory, universal basic education, because we see it as an integral part of our basic education package, and ensure that such delays do not occur. Finally, let me indicate that as we resolve the delays in payment and we pay them realistic fees, I think it is time for us to build in automatic price mechanisms or automatic price adjustment mechanisms in the school feeding program, because we have data on food inflation annually. So we should be able to have a mechanism that tells us at what point we have to increase the per unit cost of production based on food inflation data obtained regularly from the statistical service. If food prices keep increasing and government pretends that the school feeding program the caterers are going to manage, the management virtually would mean that quality of food produced will be compromised, the food will be delayed, the quantity will be compromised, or the quality of supervising the delivery of food service will also be compromised. So let's have this built-in mechanism so that we don't have to wait for agitations. We don't have to wait for agitations or the wild social movement before increments that we all appreciate that should have taken place within the systematic scheme of things takes place. That is how I think the social intervention policy and the school feeding program should be managed.
Dr. Ifa, of course, he spoke about quality, and of course, you also spoke about quality, which your research spoke extensively about. It's very important. We're talking about quality and quantity, but if we have quality, I think we can actually live on that. Now, would you blame the caterers for not providing quality food? Because if you look at 97 pesos worth, I mean, you can't go to town with 97, less than 1 cedi to get like a plate or a bowl of food. So I think they're actually trying. What did your research recommend in terms of ensuring quality in our schools?
Aisha, obviously, I mean, if government is refusing to pay what the caterers need, we cannot really blame them for the food they are providing to the kids. I mean, as far back as 2019, we're talking about increasing the amount to 2 cedis. And we are in 2023 now. So even what my friend Kofi indicated about 2 cedis, I think that he's just trying to be a little diplomatic about that. I mean, look at the current inflationary rate. And what do you expect? For me, the caterers are even trying, because you cannot really do much with how much they are receiving now.
Hello, Dr. Aifa. Okay, so Dr. Aifa is Deputy Country Director of Send Ghana, and he's been sharing excerpts or the findings of comprehensive research that they did on the school feeding program. Kofi Asare has also been corroborating that finding, and he says that one of the things he talked about is ensuring that we have quality for the kids. We can't just be providing food for the children when we are not ensuring that there is quality for the children. Kofi Asare, so he's been talking about recommendations, what we can do to improve on it, because you said it has come to stay. And we all know that if it goes away, the implications are dire. What do you recommend as the surest way of making this exercise better? At least we accept that it has helped to improve enrollment in our schools.
Will have to be seen as a policy. We need to depart from the era where the school feeding program is seen as a token to political party, loyalists for their loyalty to their parties. The era where every government comes, sacks all caterers, bring in new caterers who are their party members should end. We should actually approach the whole procurement and management, contract management of the school feeding program as a professional one, and not one that delivers contracts as handouts to political cronies. If you don't do that, it makes it difficult to manage the program effectively. It makes it difficult to monitor and ensure quality assurance. It makes it difficult for the caterers themselves to demand their right within the contracts, because they see the contracts as tokens, as gifts that are given to them for their loyalty. So if you talk too much, it will be taken away from you. But if you actually end the contract in a much more legitimate, for want of a better word, way, you would have your right under the contract and have the strength to negotiate for, for proper terms that will enable you to deliver quality. That's the first thing. The second thing is that the school feeding program itself has made an impact at the primary level. Now, for us to begin to feel the full impact of the school feeding program, it must be expanded to cover junior high schools. Many countries across Africa have school feeding programs in the basic education system. I mentioned the example of South Africa. South Africa has one of the highest survival rates. That is, they have one of the least dropout rates. And one of the reasons why they have a high survival rate in their basic education system is because of the school feeding program, which is in almost every school in that country. Now, we have a system where you give the person food. When the person gets to primary 6, then you stop. The factors that would have led the person to drop out in primary 6 will still remain in the community in junior high school 1. So if you fail to give the person food in junior high school 1, you are creating a situation where primary 6 students may drop out and go to town, go to the farm, to go and do what to give them food to eat. That is why between primary 6 and junior high school 1, about 20% of junior high school students drop out in Ghana, especially in the deprived districts. So it is very important for us to, on the basis of the outcomes of the school feeding program in primary school in terms of survival, enrollment, and retention, to begin thinking about expanding the program to the junior high school so that it will become a comprehensive basic education program. But this cannot happen if the program continues to be managed as a political token to party followers. So we want to see a much more professional approach in managing the program so that we can benefit from its anticipated outcomes.
Is Dr. Aifa back? Doc, you were sharing with me recommendations of your research that studied the school feeding program.
Yeah, thank you. One top priority is that as much as possible, government should be up and doing in paying the caterers. That is one, because it's important. We are where we are because government consistently has been delaying, incessant delays in payment. So that is the very important thing and quick thing that we need to do. Another thing is about the amount. 0.97 pesos is not enough. And so we are saying that as much as possible, there should be automatic adjustment of the prices based on inflation. So, look at currently the inflationary rate. So it's important that government need to adjust the school feeding payment to caterers based on inflation. But even before that, we still think that we need to look at the amount. Even 3 cedis for us is not enough. I remember we sat in a meeting where we were discussing this. That was 2019 when we started the discussion. And the poster from the ministry was like, my brother, you know that if you are giving 2 cedis, it's not just 2 cedis just for one, because you have to look at the fact that they will be buying things in bulk. So they are encouraging the caterers to buy things in bulk. Even that, I do not think, considering the current situation, will help. So adjusting the pricing based on inflation will help. We should also stop politicizing the school feeding program. That is one thing I forgot to mention. But in our research, it was clear that there are a lot of politicization in there. That, in a way, also speaks to what Kofi said about leadership. And so once that is done, I think it's going to help. The last thing for me is that just to broaden the whole discussion, not just with school feeding, but all the social interventions. There are a lot of challenges with capitation grant, which is also still related to school, LEAP, the Livelihood and Empowerment Against Poverty Program, NHIS, and all these interventions. In fact, today, currently, we were doing something, even not about school feeding, but it also came up when we were looking at issues of gender responsibility in agriculture. It came up clearly that district officials said that for almost a whole year, they've not even been paid. The government of Ghana allocation is not coming. And for that matter, they can't even do anything. So one really always want to question, so what is happening currently in this country that there seems to be cash strapped, almost every sector. And if it happens like that, then we are doomed as a country.
Now, Kofi, okay, so most of the things that we've proposed looks like a long-term measure, like not politicizing the exercise so that we can have some professionalism in there. Looks to me like something that will take a gradual process. But in the short to medium term, Kofi, what do you want to see?
In the short to medium term, low-hanging fruits. One, we need to, as he's mentioned, we need to pay realistic fees for the food, and then ensure that the quality being provided is consistent with the fees that or the cost that government is paying for the food. But in the immediate term, His Excellency the President must appoint a substantive minister at the Ministry of Gender. It is just too late. I mean, we have waited too long. We need a substantive minister at the Ministry of Gender, because the absence of the minister, of a substantive minister, is affecting the ministry in so many ways. Yes, there's a caretaker minister, but the caretaker minister has another ministry to deal with, which she hasn't even, finished dealing with that ministry. So you obviously wouldn't expect the business of managing a ministry responsible for providing social protection to the most vulnerable in our society to be someone's part-time job. No, we need a substantive minister for the ministry. A lot of policy decisions need to be taken. The other project that my organization has been collaborating with that ministry to work with, and I know the extent to which the absence of a minister has stalled a lot of decisions that otherwise could have been taken, over the period. And so we need, as much as urgently as possible, a substantive minister to give political leadership and direction in respect of the issues that we are seeing. Thirdly, we want to see the Ministry of Finance beyond words, beyond verbal assurances, give us a plan to assure all stakeholders that the liquidity issues being faced are being decisively and comprehensively dealt with. Not just school feeding program, but also on the free senior school feeding program, because the challenges are the same. The Minister of Finance must explain to us why, after taking our taxes, after collecting GET fund, after collecting oil revenues, we don't pay our taxes in arrears. Why is it that after collecting our taxes, he struggles to disburse funds to the school feeding program and by essentially the Ministry of Gender, and also for running school feeding under the Free Senior High School. Okay, because the issues we are discussing are primarily at source issues relating to liquidity, the lack of cash. So we want the Minister of Finance to assure us what he intends to do different from what has been the norm in terms of always delaying payment. We need to move from this era of delaying payment because citizens are not paying their taxes in arrears, as I keep saying, so that we can have time to focus on monitoring the quality of delivery and then gauge its impact on, medication provision. That is what I think should be done in the immediate future.
I'm grateful for your time. Kofi Asare is the Executive Director of the Africa Education Watch. Dr. Emmanuel Aifa is also Deputy Country Director of Send Ghana. Earlier, we spoke with Siba Alpha, who is PRO of the School Feeding Secretariat, but he was unable to join. Peggy Annan is also an executive member of the School Feeding Teachers Association. She promised to be part of the conversation, but we couldn't reach her to join the conversation. But in essence, government is being called upon to deal with the issues of the school feeding program before it escalates. My name is Aisha Ibrahim. Many thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of our programs.